Any other questions? Next
I
topic.
have a I have a question about what kind of app or software to use to evaluate businesses. I'm new. I'm with EXP Commercial, and I'm a business broker. I'm trying to see which software or app is the most affordable and uh, effective in terms of evaluating businesses. Do you have any recommendation on that?
Business valuation is something that you need to learn how to do. There are, and generally you're going to use Excel spreadsheets and all that. There are some apps out there, and you also you can use different, create a business alliance with like a business appraiser, and they can do valuations for you. But ultimately, it's something that you need to learn how to do. So I would recommend IBBA has some good courses. They have what they call an educational summit that they give 4 times a year. And that consists of IBBA 210, 220, and 221, I believe, which are all about valuing and pricing businesses. And so that's like 32 hours of education focused solely on valuing and pricing businesses. And it's just really good you need to get good at that, because I can tell you from experience that sometimes you'll come across a seller and they've had a business appraisal done, and they'll hand you the appraisal and say, well, this is the value of my business. And then when you look at the appraisal, you'll find out that it's way overstated. There was a company years ago, and they probably exist today, but what they would do is hold these big seminars and invite business owners in, usually kind of lower middle market, but anybody that they thought had a business that was worth $1 million and up. They'd invite them into these presentations, and they would sell them these hardbound, really pretty valuations for like $35,000. I mean, ridiculous amounts of money, right? And give them a book, a hardbound book that was supposed to be their valuation. Then they would tie up their business for the next 2 years on a listing agreement that was never going to go anywhere. They sold very few businesses, if any, but they made a ton of money selling these $35,000 valuations. And so, after a while, they would get a really bad reputation, and they'd have some lawsuits filed against them. And so they would shut down and then start up under a different name and do the same thing over again. And so, it happened for years and years and years. They're probably still doing it to this day. But appraisals, when even though somebody can pay a lot of money for appraisal, the appraisers can still make mistakes, just like we can. We can still make mistakes when we're valuing businesses too. But also, one of the things that I've seen in appraisals before is, they use a whole bunch of valuation methods, and then they weight them. Okay. Well, when you are weighting publicly held companies, and the valuation and method per comparison to publicly held companies, and the privately held company that you're valuing is only doing $1 million in revenue, that it is not good to weight that 70%, because that is going to completely skew your numbers. And so there are appraisals and things that you're going to run into where you look at them and you can tell it's like, okay, well, that's a 10 or 12 times multiple of earnings, which is not going to sell. Let's say their discretionary earnings are $200,000. That is not going to sell for $2 million, right? So the multiples have to be within a certain range for small businesses, and something with discretionary earnings of 200 grand is probably going to sell maybe for 600, You're probably going to get around a 3, depending on a lot of factors. I mean, there's other things that play into value. Like, for example, if they have 10 employees, but 4 of them are not legally working in the country, don't have correct papers to legally work in the United States, then a buyer looking to buy that business has to decide if they're going to continue to take that risk or if they're going to replace 40% of the workplace from day one. So buyers looking at that business they're going to subtract from the value. They're going to decrease the value of that business because of that high risk. So there are a lot of things like that that can happen, as you go through businesses and are looking at businesses and learning about value. What you find out is that there's typically a value range, and what determines whether the business is going to go to the lower end of the range or the higher end of the range is really how well the business is being operated. Does it have documented procedures? Is there next level management? Or, is the business super owner centric? And when the owner walks out the door, most of the knowledge about how to operate the business walks out the door with him. So there's a lot of factors that will decide whether that business is going to slide down to the lower end of the value range, or if it's going to go back, slide to the upper end of the range. The more organized the business is, the cleaner it is. The books and records being clean is a huge factor. The having next level management can certainly contribute to higher valuation. When you have, there's a saying that the more irrelevant that the business owner is to the business, the higher the value will be. So if the owner is, basically overseeing the business and maybe works, 10 hours a week or less, then that business is going to have far more value than a business owner who's working 50 or 60 hours a week, or even 40 hours a week. Okay. Any other